Hello, everybody, and welcome back to You Exchange, the podcast where I exchange my user experiences to change them, and yours for the better. I'm Jeremy, a mentor and senior user researcher with over 8 years of experience and a background in neuroscience. Throughout my career, I've had the privilege of engaging with hundreds of users around the world, spanning across Europe, the USA, Africa, and India. This has allowed me to deliver actionable insights that have improved user experiences with nutrition, automotive, delivery, and e-commerce sectors. I've created this podcast with the aim of providing my mentorship and educational content, offering actionable tips, knowledge, and guidance in the realm of research, specifically focusing on UX research to anyone having an interest in this area. And I hope that you will find this episode insightful.
One, two, three, four.
Let's dive right in. And in this episode, I will cover my overall tips and tricks when it comes to the resume. So, if you're among the layoffs that happened over the last year, I'm sorry for the situation. It's not easy. I have been there, and that is in part the reason why I'm doing this podcast. It started during the layoffs. And so I totally understand how difficult it is right now to go over the resumes, face the rejections, and so on. So, first of all, before I start, you have to understand that it's a numbers game. So, you might apply everything I'm saying in this episode and still not get called for an interview. In the end, the demand is so high, the demand for a job is so high that it might be complicated to even get screened by a recruiter, first of all. But so I will try to communicate here all my tips, everything that I applied in the past that successfully landed me a job. And so hopefully you will have one or two key aspects that will stick and that will help you improve your resume. The goal here is not to provide you only with new information. I'm sure all of you might already know how to craft a resume, but my goal is to have only one. If you can at least learn one aspect, I'm already happy. And so I will start with two tips. The first one being, of course, always keep your resume updated. So the best moment to be prepared for a layoff or to find a job is actually when you are still in a job. So always keep your resume updated. So this is something that maybe you have seen written or heard somewhere, which I find actually true, which is always be prepared to leave a company because they are prepared to leave you. So that is the honest truth. There is nothing bad about this. I mean, you just have to be prepared and have your resume on the side because if something happens, you won't have to spend some days, some months, maybe not some months, but some weeks to craft a resume and to craft a portfolio. So have it already prepared. And by the way, I will have an episode also on how to craft a UX research portfolio. This one is focused on the resume, so we'll be in several parts. So that's the first tip. Of course, be prepared even when you still have a job, let's say. That's the best moment to be prepared. Then the second tip is also have a kind of master file resume. So you have already, of course, read everywhere that a resume should be 1 page long. I tend not to be that strict. It can be 1 page long or 2 pages long. The goal is not to be 1 page and a quarter, 1 page and a half, because it doesn't look aesthetically good. And if you make it 1 page and a half, why not 2 pages or why not 1 page? You can always do the work of either adding relevant experience or removing. So that's the point. But always keep a master file resume, and this one should be whatever page is long. The goal is that you have all your skills, all your accomplishments that you made throughout the years, and from which you can cherry pick for any new job, because that's my third tip. Of course, I'm sure you knew, but if not, resumes should be tailored for the kind of job that you're applying for. And so I'm sorry if this is really common sense, but to be honest, it may not be that common, because I received a lot of requests regarding how to craft a resume. And so in the end, this is not something we have been told. We have received training for at school. At least me, I have to find the information by myself. So I will try to be completely comprehensive in the hope that you will at least find one piece of information that will help you. So these are my first 3 tips. Keep a master file resume with all your accomplishments and skills somewhere. The second one is always be prepared. Always have a resume up to date. And that's it. I don't know why I said 3 tips. It's only 2. And so that is it for the main 2 tips. And then now we will go over some key sections. So the first one is, even before you craft the resume in itself, and that will help you to build this kind of master file resume, is to think. Basically think. Or organize your thoughts, organize your past, your present, and your future in your head before actually writing something. And to think clearly, you can also write, of course, but before writing this master file resume, you can think about this. So by thinking, I mean strengths. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your personal preferences, your motivations, and your unique skill set? Because all these kind of things, they have to be, they will be read transversally, let's say, or across everything in your resume, let's say between the lines. This is the information that your recruiter will be able to access by reading between the lines. And so think about all this, because when you have this in mind first, you will be able to craft everything accordingly. So that's the first thing. Then craft your master file resume, and then before you craft an actual tailored resume for this actual position, think about the company. So the company that you want to apply for, because as I was saying, so this was my third tip, I think. A resume should be tailored for the company, of course. So one position, one resume. And so the tip is to take from this master file resume and always create a new version. Let's say you apply to position ABC. Well, you have a master file, you copy it, you rename it ABC, and then you change everything. And you make it so that it's like 1 page long or 2 pages long, but so that it's tailored, so that you have only, so by tailored, I mean only the relevant information for the position, and phrased in a way that will be detectable by the automated system. So, but that step is after you actually also think about the company. So first you think about yourself, your strengths, weaknesses, personal preferences, motivations, unique skill set, and then you think about the company. So what are the breaking news about the company? What are the greatest challenges or opportunities? How can you contribute to this company? What are their needs and what is the competition? So these are only a handful criteria, but probably you have more in mind. Think about this before you adapt your resume to the position. Now I will cover another part, which is about the overall presentation of your resume. Your resume should, first of all, be consistent in terms of format. This is something that is fairly simple, that is fairly common sense, but it can happen that we don't see some things, such as I express some numbers in actual numbers, and sometimes I express them in letters. This is not consistent, for instance. Or you underline some aspects of your resume, let's say the dates. Don't do that, by the way, but imagine you would do that, and then you don't do it for the next professional experience. It doesn't make sense because it's not consistent. So the format is actually let's say the ground basis of your resume, a actual consistent format will lay the ground for your recruiter to be able to know where to scan and where to look for information. So that's about the consistency. Then about the format in itself, well, of course, make it so that it's readable. So if we speak about the font in terms of size, I would recommend between 11 and 12, and to choose a font that is easily readable, of course, and that looks professional, such as, I don't know, Helvetica, Times New Roman, Arial, Calibri, and so on. Also, I have received a lot of questions regarding how to optimize to be screened by automatic systems. There is a name for that. This is called the applicant tracking system. So I do not know anything beyond that. I just know that there are automatic systems and that they scan your resume for correspondences between your resume and the job ad. That's as simple as that. And the other thing I know is that for them to be able to scan, it needs to be easy. So the analogy that I oftentimes use is you trying to highlight or to select a text in a PDF or in a Word. If you can select a text from the top left of the document until the bottom right, this is an actually easily scannable document. But if your document has a lot of boxes or shapes or any other geometrical, element, when you will select text, it will come across, and also the test is to select everything, copy and paste. And if by doing that, this is replicated in a new document, that means the applicant tracking system will, in fact, be able to track pretty much easily. If not, that means if you're making your resume in general in PowerPoint, so you can make it on PowerPoint, but having only one text box, basically one common text box, and making use of columns, for instance, but one area where you write. But if you make it in PowerPoint, where you have several boxes, or you use a template with several boxes and shapes, or imagine you do it on Canva, which is beautiful, it's aesthetic, but just keep in mind that your resume might not be readable by the applicant tracking system. And in the end, you need to know that this is a machine. This is an automatic system. Nowadays, humans are really rarely the first ones seeing your resume. And so you have to understand, you have to target your resume to the audience. And in this case, the audience is a machine with limitations. So if you don't take that into account, you will not be shortlisted. You will not be selected. So have that in mind. Make it easily scannable and readable by the applicant tracking system. Okay, then there is the idea of all the, let's say format aspect. So avoid everything that adds burden to the reader, such as underlining, shading, text boxes. I already said it, but make it easily readable. About the margins, have clear margins so that we can breathe when we read your document. The idea is not to have the last word and the last period at the very last millimeter of your page, and submit your resume in PDF. Oftentimes, it's best. Now about some do's and don'ts. So when you write your resume, if you write it in English, so there are specificities regarding the market, but if you write it in English, there is an actual way to phrase your accomplishments, because the overall, the most important section of a resume in general is the accomplishments. It's not the skills, it's not the profile, it's not, it depends on the level, but it's less the education. If you have extensive professional experience, the professional experience will weigh more. So in general, except if you're a junior, if you're straight out of college, your resume will be the most important aspect will be the professional experience. And in this section, you have to express yourself in the active way and not passive. Okay, and so there is a way to do it. You use active verbs such as initiated or accomplished or directed or supervised or coached, whatever, and you use it without the I pronoun, this is important, and you use the ed tense. So you use the past tense, and that's it. We will then cover what should be the content of these actual accomplishment statements. Try to be articulate and not flowery. Use consistent spacing, underlining, italics, bold, and capitalization for emphasis. And of course, then as I was saying, professional experience is usually the most important section, but use the sections, the headings, in order of importance. So if the professional experience, you have more experience than the actual education, put it first, okay? So from top to bottom, put it first. We will cover, so let's cover it now. You can have the resume laid out in columns. So you can have one column on the left. Actually, mine is in general, I have one very larger column, which is about the professional experience. And then on the right or on the left, I have another column with more minor elements such as skills, educational background, interests, contact. And if you have two columns, but not with text boxes, columns, the actual feature in Google Docs or in Word, it will be easily scannable by the applicant tracking system. And inside your headings, such as professional experience and educational background, list the actual information in reverse chronological order, so the most recent first. Try to avoid, of course, as much as possible, the spelling and grammar errors or having some missing email and phone information and using the passive language instead of action words. So this is a quick list of do's and don'ts. Now about the contact section. So this is in general one of the first sections that your interviewer will see. So add any useful links here. The reason is sometimes in the forms to apply, you have no option to add your link to a portfolio or to a LinkedIn. Now it's becoming more common, but not every time. So add in the contact section links to your LinkedIn and to your portfolio. If you indicate your country, imagine you live in Spain and you want to apply for a job in Italy, well, make it clear that you're able to relocate. Add your whole contact information, and usually it's better to write your name in bold with your city and state of residence. Now let's talk about the professional summary. So if you don't know, a professional summary is kind of an elevator pitch about yourself, like in 3-4 sentences long. And it's actually very much debated regarding the usefulness of this section. I tend to include it now. Why? Because with the increasing number, I can be wrong, of course, from a recruiter perspective. And if you're a recruiter and listening to this podcast, I would love to have the perspective on what I'm saying, because things change pretty fast due to the high number of applications and the changing landscape of let's say openings inside companies. So if you're a recruiter listening to this and you have some insights, please share your feedback. It would be super useful. And if I make any mistake in terms of recommendation, I would like to know it as well, so that I can correct. But this is only my experience from an applicant perspective. So the professional summary, the usefulness is actually very much debated, but the point is I tend to include it at the top of my summary. So it's like 3-4 sentences about myself, my interests, my past, my future, aspirations, and so on. Why? Because I actually, in general, don't like very much to write cover letters. It's not that I don't like to write them. I actually love to write a cover letter. I love the process of articulating my thoughts and justifying my interest for the position. But the current inflation in the job industry, in the market regarding professional opportunities, makes it so that we don't have time to tailor a cover letter to all of the companies we want to apply for. So usually I tend to substitute this cover letter. It's not at all the same thing. And if you're a recruiter, you will agree with me, of course. It's not at all the same thing, but it's just kind of a sneak peek about yourself without having to write a cover letter. And actually, currently companies are a bit more permissive with that. So they don't make cover letters a compulsory thing to submit. However, if you have a field indicating that you have the ability to put a cover letter, in my opinion, you should put it. Because if the field is there and if you put a cover letter, you will make a difference and you will be read. I am 90% sure of that. You will be read if you submit a cover letter. So if you have the opportunity, do it. But now let's come back to the professional summary. So in general, it's between 2 and 4 sentences. And the idea is to give a sneak peek to the recruiter about your unique credentials, who you are, so about your education, training, role-specific skills, what makes you unique and distinguishable from other candidates, your most important achievements, and also how I like to see it is also what are you looking for? So what will you bring in the company you're applying to? And it's kind of a, let's say, a branding statement. So I like to do it in like more or less 4 sentences. So the first one being your background. What is your educational background? What is your degree? What were, let's say, your majors? You can say coming from, for instance, myself, I come from a neuroscience background. So that's what I'm saying. I'm coming from a neuroscience background. You can also state, for instance, your number of years of experience. This is also debatable. Number of years doesn't indicate every time seniority. So it's better to indicate accomplishments. So it can be, for instance, number of studies you ran, number of, I don't know, products you launched if you're a product manager, or number of prototypes you succeeded to deliver if you're a designer, whatever. So some things about your past, basically. Then in like 1 sentence or 2, what are you uniquely good at? So it can be you're good at running user interviews, you're good at mixed methodologies, you're good at quantitative skills, and so on, okay? And then what I like to do is giving a sneak peek, of course, of what I'm looking for. So the last sentence should be like glimpse into the future, what you look for, and in general, it should be pretty much tailored to the position you're applying for, of course. So this is for the professional summary, and then we'll cover education. So in general, education, again, it really depends on each case. If you're junior, it will not be the case. But if you're kind of middle, senior, education will not be the most important section. So it should be in the lower, middle, or bottom area of your resume. And same as the professional experience, you should use the reverse chronological order with the last degree you obtained first. And so you can indicate the title of the degree and the academic institution where it was attended. Then about your skills. So here, what would be important in general is that you should know that as everything else in your resume, everything is scanned. So the skills is also a great way. Let's say, imagine, how does that work? You have a job ad, you have to extract, that's basically my process. I extract every keyword from the job ad. So I concretely speaking, I copy paste the job ad in a Word document. Then I look for the keywords, and then I have a list of keywords. So you can easily see the keywords because these are things that are specific to the job. It's not general things that you would have in every job. It should be specific to the job. So imagine I apply for a UX research job. Well, a keyword would be discovery research. And why it's a keyword? Because it's also a keyword because every company phrases it differently. So instead of discovery research, another company will phrase it foundational research. Sometimes it's pretty much the same. There are some specificities between the two, but here the point is every company phrases what they look for differently. And so they have an internal jargon which is different and inherent to each company. And these keywords, actually phrased it specifically from each company, is what the applicant tracking system is looking for. So that's why you have to select the job ad, copy paste it, extract all the keywords, and have the keywords specific to each company. So company ABC will call discovery research. Company DEF, instead of calling it discovery research, will call it foundational research. Well, in your resume, you have to call it the way the company calls it. That's the point. Why am I saying this now? It's because in the skills section, it's actually a good opportunity to indicate, to increase the matching score between your resume and the job ad by putting exactly the same naming as the job ad, basically. However, there are several things that you should have in mind here. The first thing is that when you do the job of scanning the keywords and what the job ad, the company is looking for, you should have in mind three kinds of skills. You have the hard skills, the soft skills, and the very specific technical skills, which could be into the hard, to be honest, but I like to divide them into three buckets. Why? Because I like to have a maximum of 9 skills in my resume and 3 per category. So 3 hard skills, 3 soft skills, and 3 technical skills. By technical here, I mean software. So imagine you would put here Figma, you would put here Dovetail, and so on, or Excel, or whatever. And of course, you should be really targeted and specific. That's why the 9, because it forces me to be limited. I'm sure you master more than 9, but still, you have to do an exercise of synthesizing and to be concise, because it's also something you will be evaluated against. So, hard skills, technical skills, and soft skills. And so, list them into like 3 columns, each one, and 3 per column. And into the technical, you can list the computer software, programming languages, for instance, and maybe even some foreign languages. Okay, then how does that work? For each skill that you mention in the skills section, you should have an actual statement into the professional experience section that exemplifies it and that supports it. It's easy to say that you are a problem solver, but if you don't show into the experience section that you actually solved the problem in the past, well, I could say anything into my skills section. So really make sure that you are illustrating the skill by an actual statement. And so now that we speak about the experience section, let's cover it. So for the experience section, as I was saying in the beginning, start each bullet point with action verbs, and then include the rest of the sentence with job-oriented hard skills, domain knowledge, and soft skills. Include, of course, some quantifiable results. Quantifiable does not mean it has to be numbers. Sorry, in this case I do not mean quantify, I mean actionable results. So results, basically. But something that impacted the company. So it can be numbers, it can be percentages, but it can also be that you changed an actual policy inside your company. It's not quantifiable, but you actually had an impact on the policy of the company. How to phrase your impact statements. So in general, it should be structured there are 2 ways to structure it. The first one is kind of old-fashioned in my opinion, but anyway, it can be useful. So structured as problem, action, and results. So what was the problem? What did you do to solve it? And what were the results, basically? This is more, I will cover an episode into how to prepare for a job interview. This is more for behavioral questions in job interview, to be honest. it's less for the resume, but sometimes it can fit. So I indicate it just in case. And yeah, and so basically have these statements in a bullet list. What I like to do is for each experience that I had, I have up to 6 bullet points maximum. And the more you progress back into your experience, the less you will have bullet points, of course. So it's more appropriate to expand in the recent experiences, of course. And now, how can you really phrase your accomplishments? So what I like to do is follow the methodology by Google, which is called the ABC statement, ABC methodology. I don't know exactly the name, ABC framework, but whatever. The idea is that you express your accomplishment that you had in a company by three sections inside your sentence. So again, let me give you an example. Improved UX processes inside the company by developing trainings, playbooks, and presentations, by running research inside the company, whatever. I just made it. This is really a weird statement, but still, you can see the outcome, which is improved the processes by. How did you do it? Basically, what was the methodology here? You can also include, and I'm sorry, this is a mistake, the by, it's like first the outcome, then the by, how did you do it? And you have another by, this is in the ABC, I don't know it by heart, but you also have another by, which is by how much, basically. So that's the quantifiable part. So, for instance, you can say, improve the processes, improve the UX processes, as shown by a reduction in 50% redundancy, whatever, by developing frameworks and templates, whatever. So that can be a way. So the overall statement is improved. What did you improve by? And you indicate increasing or reducing. Then you indicate the metric, and then by how you did it. So that's about the accomplishment statements. Then you can have other sections such as additional roles. You can also mention if you participate in some volunteering roles, if you give some mentorship, if you give some classes, and so on and so forth. And yes, try to be lean, try to be straight to the point, and try to leave some white space. This is also a good tip. And to wrap up, I will just mention one last tip, which is don't apply to every job that you see. I know this is very easy to say, but let me give you a little story to exemplify what I'm saying. So back then, when I was laid off, I actually, at some point, it was short, but I did it for like 1 week. I applied to all the jobs that were out there, all the jobs. And to be fairly honest with you, at some point I had 10 interviews in 1 week, which was great. I liked it, to be honest. And I was like, maybe one of them I land. Yes, but to land in a job is actually only the first step, to be really honest. Then you have to like it. Your employer has to like you. It has to be a match. And you can be filtered and selected as many times as you like. In the end, it has to be a match, and the match is not at the time when you're accepted. It's in the long run, to be honest. So for that to happen, you need to make sure that there is a match in terms of values, in terms of ways of working, in terms of interests, in terms of industry, and so on. So, for instance, I know that there are some industries I'm not interested in working. There are some products I'm not interested by the products, for instance. And so the other difficult part is that when you have so many interviews and that you apply just for the sake of applying, then you have to come back and look for why did you apply, and you have to find a reason. And this is not the right process. You should find the reason first. So basically, I will cover it when I will cover the section about preparing for job interviews. But basically, the job is fairly simple. When I prepare for job interviews, there are two sections. It's actually something that I do up front before I apply. There are two sections that I prepare, only two. Then I prepare the answers to some questions, yes, but at the very beginning, there are two sections that I need to prepare. The first one is, why am I a good fit? So I will list all the skills that are actually what the employer is looking for. That's 50% of the job. If you prepare that, you will be prepared to answer 50% of the questions in your job interview. The other half is just, why are you interested in the position? In my opinion, 50% of, almost 100% of you, let's say, of what will determine if you are selected or not by the employer is determined by the extent to which you prepared the answer to these two questions. Because then all the other questions are kind of related to these two ones, in my opinion. So this is just a sneak peek into how to prepare for job interviews, and I will cover it more extensively in the next podcast. Probably the next will be about portfolios. I will see. But this is the idea. And that's it for today's episode. Thank you everyone for joining me today on New Exchange. I hope you found today's episode insightful and valuable. Make sure to subscribe in order for you not to miss the next episode. Share it if you liked it and leave a review. Thank you for your time and attention. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for future topics, feel free to reach out directly to me. You can find all the details in the show notes. And see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Wanna hear you go.